for joining us for the Q&A on December 23rd, 2025. We are so excited and so blessed to have brother Dr. Avery Jackson, our chief medical advisor with Cardio Miracle, with us. And whenever people say that's not brain surgery, he is a brain surgeon. So, Dr. Avery, how we doing, man?
Hey, Josh. It's always a pleasure, brother. It's always great to talk to you. You're always so uplifting, and you bring the cardio miracle message across so well, and especially from your experience. As someone who has gone through so many different journeys, health journeys. So it's an honor, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. As we are both wearing our own types of clothing, we have Victory Beast in here. So
Yeah.
Dr. Woo! So very exciting, man. So thank you. So real quick, I'm going to read a disclaimer for compliance purposes before we get started, Dr. Avery. Cardio Miracle is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, prevent any diseases. Information in this interview and Q&A, the questions are provided for informational purposes only. It is not meant to substitute for medical advice from your physician or other medical professionals. But we are very excited for anyone who is joining us and wanting to put some questions in the chat. We're very blessed to have everyone here. But I first wanted to start out a question for myself here, Dr. Avery. If you could, give us your true opinion on what is nitric oxide and why is it important for our health? It's kind of a loaded question.
No, it's totally cool. Since using Cardio Miracle, running into you guys, and John Hewlett, the founder, your dad, I've learned more about about nitric oxide, and it's amazing, and especially the way it works in the formula of Cardio Miracle because of the sustained release in your body. Well, in a nutshell, nitric oxide is a signaling molecule that helps deal with inflammation and balance in your body's systems, especially when it relates to your immune system and looking at repair and destruction, in the sense that, like, when our immune system can help us obviously fight infections and viruses and so forth, but it can also create scar tissue. And so some scar tissue is good, a lot of scar tissue isn't good. So likewise with nitric oxide, it has three components: NNOS, eNOS, and iNOS. And so the eNOS is the one that we tend to focus on the most, and that's the one that does the best for our bodies most of the time in terms of fighting infections and other issues. So in the Cardio Miracle, the nitric oxide, it focuses on upregulating or giving us more available eNOS, and it does that in two ways. One way is that it has with it some amino acids, that arginine and citrulline, that help to encourage our body making nitric oxide, and the nitric oxide that's already in it also gets in our bodies, and then that lasts in our body systems for over 20 hours. So it's a combination of the two. It's a 1-2 punch. And that's why it's so important, because pretty much without nitric oxide, you wouldn't last very long. An infection or an injury would overcome you over time if you deplete your stores of nitric oxide.
Love that. Love that. And we're coming right off of the heels of Turning Point USA, where the organization that Charlie Kirk put together, and there were 30,000 people in attendance at this Turning Point event. Literally, a fire marshal came in and he said, "Hey, wherever you go in this building, you have to stay. You can't be wandering around." Like, it was wild to see how many people were there, but it was so exciting to be able to be there and represent, people like Megan Kelly, who actually, my brother Jason he actually toured with her and opened for her on her tour. And he actually got her to taste Cardio Miracle. We haven't got feedback on that yet, but it was pretty exciting. And then when he was opening for Tucker Carlson last year, he was getting that whole team on Cardio Miracle. So yeah, man, we're just trying to make the rounds and get help as many people as we possibly can. And one of the biggest things that I was stressing to all these people that were getting in line and asking us questions and everything is how critically important having whole and organic fruits and vegetables are that are generating the nitric oxide and not converting the nitric oxide into a free radical. So can you explain that to us a little bit, Dr. Avery?
Oh, for sure, for sure. So when we talk about free radicals in our body, we're talking about what happens with primarily with oxygenated elements in our body and how those will carry electrons, a certain number of electrons. And when the electrons are unbalanced, that's when you have a free radical, and that does a lot of destruction in your tissues and your energy stores in your body, and that's a free radical. And so with nitric oxide, the what it does is it helps to balance out and fill in or pair those free radicals. So now it'll contribute an oxygen molecule, and so now you don't have an unpaired electron or oxygen molecule by itself causing destruction of the tissues. Now they're paired together, and that stabilizes that complex. And that's important because when you look at destruction or injury, either a physical injury, emotional, or infectious injury to our tissues, our bodies are very sensitive to adjust to those injuries. And with those injuries, you secrete lactic acid and other chemicals that are necessary at the point of injury. But when they stay around too long, then that causes inflammation and that causes destruction of tissue, breakdown of tissue. So the nitric oxide goes in and it balances all of that out. And that's why it's probably the most important molecule or signaling molecule that we can have in our bodies as it relates to when there's infection or other injuries. And when it's depleted, like I said before, that's when you see people get really, really sick. And that's what the science shows in terms of what happens when that signaling molecule isn't there in abundance and it's not being able to be used. And so I appreciate the fact that in the Cardio Miracle, when you add the organic fruits and the vegetables, it's a perfect symphony with the nitric oxide. So nitric oxide can be found in some different fruits, like for instance beets, and there's beets in Cardio Miracle. But the issue though is how do you stabilize the nitric oxide and make it really available to all your tissues for long periods? Because if not, you're going to grab it up when you're sick and it's going to be gone, and that's going to push you over the edge, and you have more free radicals in your body, and that creates more inflammation and creates other issues. So that's why I really like the fact that it's so unique in the formula, the way that Cardio Miracle is made with the natural organic fruits and vegetables, and the way it's made is it stabilizes the nitric oxide and it protects. And I'll say one other thing that's really interesting. So when you utilize nitric oxide, there's a peroxynitrite is a byproduct. Nitrate is a byproduct of your body metabolizing or breaking down the nitric oxide. And the problem with that is, or the thought is that if nitric oxide would go through your cell wall, be used up for what it needs to be used, and then end up as the bad metabolite, what we call it, oh no, the peroxynitrite, then you would get sicker if the nitric oxide, the peroxynitrite goes up in your body, even if the nitric oxide is going up, because the nitric oxide is helping, and the other one would be hurting because it's a byproduct. But what's really cool about this, which really turned me on to Cardio Miracle, is the science behind it. And when this was studied in the lab at Malinsky's lab in Ohio. It turns out that the nitric oxide goes up and it's sustained, but the bad metabolite stays really low, which is like the perfect blend of good nitric oxide without the bad stuff. And from my understanding, this is the only product in which that happens. All the other ones have either, I think from my understanding, have not studied that ratio at all. And so that's the reason why I make sure for my patients and for my family to make sure that they keep that signaling molecule, the good stuff high and the bad one low. And that's why I strongly recommend the Cardio Miracle.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. We did get a
Sure.
couple questions in that round, so thank you so much. So first of all, can Cardio Miracle help with cholesterol or the blockage in blood vessels? And again, I've got to say that we don't cure or diagnose here. We're just we're just preachers of the word, and we just want to talk about nitric oxide and that how it helps. And so, what my experience has been is that the Cardio Miracle and nitric oxide within it that it generates and sustains actually helps regulate pretty much every blood marker in your system. So, Dr. Avery, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I completely agree. So the way our bodies work is when we don't get enough of the nutritional building blocks that we need, then then that's when the cholesterol and fat and clogging of the arteries can take over because as I mentioned earlier, inflammation itself it gets out of control. And when inflammation gets out of control, that signals the cholesterol to build like a clot or like a sore on your knee when you fall and that fibrin clot builds. Well, the same thing can happen in blood vessels and that can be a problem. But the nitric oxide, what nitric oxide does, if you look at the literature, it prevents that buildup of the clot inside the blood vessel, if you will. That's the science behind it. As well as it turns out that there's a study done that actually shows that when there's good exposure to nitric oxide, that it helps to convert yellow fat or white fat to brown fat. And brown fat is very good for our bodies. And so it's a fat biogenesis is what it's called. So again, Cardio Miracle is a superfood, and that superfood is something that our bodies need in general. That's how we're made. And once we get really good superfood and we have a good store of the basics that we need, then our body can generate all of the appropriate responses to insults. But when when we're depleted of nitric oxide, when we're depleted of other amino acids, then that's when we get into trouble. So to answer your question is the mechanism, the science behind nitric oxide itself, cholesterol molecules, hardening of the arteries. There's a lot of literature out there that shows that that when you have appropriate nitric oxide in your body, it will help to prevent and kind of change those processes. So that's just the science. And so that's why I'm a huge promoter in general of any superfoods that have nitric oxide in it.
Yes, huge, huge. Thank you. And yeah, that's something that I preach a lot to people on phone calls and whatnot. Is don't be afraid to use Google. I mean, and take Cardio Miracle out of out of the conversation and say, can nitric oxide help me with cholesterol or blockage in the blood vessels? And there are over 200,000 studies published, certified studies on the benefits of nitric oxide, and they're out there. And Google, you'll have millions of results when you do that. So another question came in: can Cardio Miracle raise blood pressure? And from my experience, it will regulate it for your body, but from the experience of our customers, we haven't seen a lot of people raising blood pressure. But what were you going to say, Dr. Avery?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, it's interesting that you say that. So one of the things is that sometimes your body needs to lower blood pressure and sometimes it needs to raise it depending upon the demand on it. And And so when there's a lot of stress, when we're dehydrated, our blood pressure goes up because we're trying to constrict the blood vessels and to get blood to all the organs, the vital organs, including our brain. Okay. But from my observation, as it relates to Cardio Miracle, as it relates to the nitric oxide, all of the fruits and vegetables in Cardio Miracle, for instance, I've not heard of any case or anyone in which it makes the blood pressure go up, and especially not in the negative sense, right? So that's just like, so that question is a great question, but it's kind of like if someone asked the question, or if I asked the question and said, well, if I eat two, strawberries and blueberries, and if I eat spinach and kale, is that going to be bad for me? And could that increase the blood pressure, for instance? And for the majority of the time, clearly the answer is going to be no, because we need all those organic fruits and vegetables and the nitric oxide so that we can regulate our body's health and wellness. And again, your body is really smart. So as long as you're getting those building blocks of nutrition that you need, which by the way, we really miss, because even some things that we think are really good foods, oftentimes the soil that those products are made on are depleted. So that's why I'm a huge fan of finding something that supplements a lot of the basic building blocks that your body needs to heal and to grow and to repair. And so, again, so huge fan of nitric oxide and Cardio Miracle for that reason.
Yes, sir. I love it. And it's so true. And so while you're starting, I tell everybody when they're starting a new protocol, when they're starting to introduce their bodies to higher levels of nitric oxide, then their body could go through what's called, loosely called by me, just a restructuring kind of like, where your blood pressure could spike a little bit, but then if you test it every day, then it's gonna regulate. It's gonna come out. And so my children's mother, I say to people all the time, make a little joke, and I say the only things we agree on are the love of my children and the fact that Cardio Miracle is a great product, because she had low blood pressure. She would pass out while she was delivering babies and scare everybody in the hospital. And then she got on Cardio Miracle and it leveled her blood pressure out, regulated it for her. She hasn't passed out in 10 years because we've been a company for, 12 years and plus. And so it's really, it's a godsend for a lot of people, but really it's the whole and organic fruits and vegetables, the place that we're never going to skimp and we're never going to cut corners on. And so looks like we've got another pretty serious question around here. So this is called ulcerative colitis. So somebody's asking about, I'm sure you know what that is, and Dr. Avery, but I had to look it up. So it's a chronic inflammatory bowel disease caused inflammation and ulcers in the innermost lining of your large intestine and rectum. So, what my initial response would be that I would look at the symptoms and see that main thing that Cardio Miracle is going to help with is inflammation. But I'm very eager to push that one on to Dr. Avery because he's a
Okay,
doc-
yeah, thanks, Josh. So it's interesting. So when you look at ulcerative colitis, and you can throw Crohn's disease in there as well, in terms of location and how these basically autoimmune disorders can affect your GI system. It's multifactorial. So one of the biggest issues we find is there's some level of anxiety. Oftentimes people can have even some forms of abuse even in their past, but that emotional kind of trauma adds to your body's not getting what it needs. And so as a result, it becomes like on steroids, if you will. And so that your body then says, hey, wait a minute, I'm attacking an imaginary bad guy. And this imaginary bad guy I'm attacking is because I'm getting these signals from your brain and from other areas that are saying there's a bad guy out there. Well, the problem is then you start to attack yourself and your GI system, and then ulcers are formed. And so, in a nutshell, that's what inflammation can do, as well as these autoimmune disorders. And remember, the way that the way that we're made, God made us so that we have really good balance for the most part in our system. So when our system's off, it means the balance is off. So we have to figure out, how do we balance those scales out again? And food is really medicine. If you look at many early studies in nutrition, you'll find that when people get really good levels of food and water and sleep, that their bodies will balance out really well. And so that's why, again, I'm a fan of Cardio Miracle, because you're getting exposed in just a couple of scoops of this powder to really concentrated amounts of good fruits and vegetable that are organic, plus the nitric oxide, all together in this interesting formula, if you will, or this mix that can address your body's areas of depletion. And like, Josh was saying earlier with his wife, the blood pressure was low. Well, the thing is that the when you get what you need in terms of the nutritional side, building blocks, your body will adjust appropriately. So in that case, the blood pressure went up because it was too low, and it's just because, again, there wasn't a balance there. And so you really need to make sure your body gets those essential building blocks and the nitric oxide, and that's the reason why I'm such a huge fan of Cardio Miracle, because of what I've seen in so many of my patients. So yeah, I would say that it would be a huge help with anyone who has a whole host of different issues. But remember, the whole point of this, Cardio Miracle is a superfood. We don't get enough nutrition that's balanced in our diets, especially nowadays. So what you want to do is you want to do whatever it takes to get inside you good superfood that can feed your body, so your body, which is really smart, can repair whatever cells, and it can address the issues when it has enough energy and it has enough fuel. So that's the point I'd like to make regarding the ulcerative colitis.
I love it. Thank you. And especially nowadays, and there's nothing I'm not gonna sit here and say anything bad about like the Ozempic and these other shots that people are taking to try to suppress their appetites. But the thing is not a lot of people are getting all the nutrients that they need, because although they're not eating, they're not eating enough, obviously, and they're trying to kill some of those desires, which I understand and I can appreciate. But in the same fact, Cardio Miracle is more important than ever to make sure that you get those vitamins and those nutrients in your system as you're going along with whatever weight loss goals you have or whatever lifestyle goals you might have. So, Dr. Avery, I want to talk about the important additions that we've made to Cardio Miracle, and if you kind of explain to the people listening and everyone on here what is one of the biggest benefits of lion's mane, one of the big ingredients that we've recently added.
So, Josh, thanks for bringing that up, because it's important for people to know and to be educated about, health and wellness, and then also about nutritional. And so lion's mane is a mushroom, and it's one of many different types of mushrooms. But what makes it so amazing is it's great for overall brain health. And so there's lion's mane added. And so what we're finding is, just like Josh had mentioned earlier, if we're not getting enough of good nutrition, then it can really affect our body, and we start to slow down. And one of the areas that we've all noticed, especially since COVID, is we've seen a lot more depression. We've seen a lot more cognitive issues, where we're thinking slower, poorer memory. We're seeing more of like the Alzheimer's and so the brain degenerative issues. So whatever we can do to get our bodies to address those issues in the brain, then that's really important. And so one of the new players in Cardio Miracle that I appreciate, one of the new components, is the lion's mane, and it brings clarity to how your brain works, and it gives more energy to a lot of the different structures in the brain, and that's what lion's mane has been shown to do. So to have that added to the nitric oxide, to have that added to the organic fruits and vegetables, and have all that work together is amazing for brain health.
Yes, sir. That's amazing. Thank you. No one can say it better than you. So now let's go
Thanks.
toe to toe with the cardiologist, shall we? So we got this. We got a question that says, "My cardiologist wants to know how does Cardio Miracle release nitric oxide? If nitric oxide is a gas, how does the body utilize it?"
Great question. Okay, so let me ask you this: how does nitric oxide? How does your body utilize oxygen, which is a gas? Right? I mean, so right? So it's so amazing. So what I would suggest for you, and I love the fact that John Hewlett, Josh Hewlett, Jason Hewlett, the Hewlett family, like they are such an open book that they encourage you to challenge Cardio Miracle. And the reason they encourage you to challenge it is because there's so much science behind it. It's ridiculous. Okay. It's, what I think is when people have a healthy criticism of something, I think they end up looking into it more and they get more answers. So I would invite you guys, and I'll finish answering your question, but I love it. I think the Cardio Miracle team loves challenges all day long because their goals, their heart, John Hewlett's heart is to help people. And he spent a lot of time and resources over these years making sure there's good science in Cardio Miracle. Now, as far as nitric oxide, the issue is just like oxygen is a gas, our body utilizes it. And as a matter of fact, it's a huge part of the respiration system. Respiration isn't just what you think when you breathe in and out. Respiration is actually transfer of electron molecules through certain interfaces in your lungs and then in the microvasculature into your blood so that you can exchange carbon dioxide and oxygen. So it's this really dynamic process of exchanging these gases, right? Carbon dioxide and oxygen. So those are all gases that are important that are in our blood that help to give us the nutrition that we need to change the blood, to oxygenate the blood, so then our organs use those gases in our blood, and then they will give the bad kind of the metabolite of metabolism. I'm sorry, I should say the end product, which is carbon dioxide, and then we get rid of carbon dioxide as we take in more of that gas, which is O2. So the nitric oxide is a gas that is not like it's not laughing gas. Some people mistake nitrous for nitric. So nitric oxide is what we're speaking about, NO. And nitrous is the laughing gas that used to be used for anesthetics years ago before we had really complex anesthetics that we have now. And me being a neurosurgeon in the operating room, sometimes when they used a little bit of nitrous along with other chemicals, if the line that on the breathing machine was a little bit loose, you could kind of smell some of that. And so the anesthesiologist would be like, okay, and then they would shut it down, because if I'm in the middle of surgery, the last thing I want is to pass out or start laughing or whatever it is, and now I can't do surgery. So having said that, just understand that nitric oxide, which is what's in Cardio Miracle, it's stable, and it's a signaling molecule that once it gets in through the drink, then it goes right to your body, it absorbs actually in your mouth and in the blood vessels under your tongue and in the mucosa, and then also it's digested like you normally would in the stomach as well. And then from there, all of its action occurs right at that the blood vessel wall, which are your endothelial cells, and that's where it's converted from nitric. The arginine is converted to citrulline, and then the arginase, L-arginase, makes nitric oxide. And then the nitric oxide goes through a process and it's converted through that cell wall as well. And then that's where you get the good stuff comes out, the bad stuff goes, into a different area, and eventually you excrete that in your body. So it's a constant turnover.
Love it, and that's the direction I was going to go as far as if anybody has any questions, especially a cardiologist, I would refer them to cardiomiracle.com/studies, and if anybody dives into those studies, anybody, and you look up what you don't understand or whatever, they will make you will know more about nitric oxide and health and wellness in general, just by reading those studies than like 90% of the people out there. So it's something that is kind of hard to explain how we utilize nitric oxide. People ask, can you test your nitric oxide levels and whatnot? And what we have tested at at a micro level is that we do generate and sustain nitric oxide in the blood system for 24 hours. And the way that we're able to test that was, I mean, we had Dr. Tadeusz Malinsky who did all that testing in a lab, and he was able to do that by just either a drop of Cardio Miracle, a drop, and he was able to see how long it lasted, which was amazing. And it's so exciting to know that we have those optimal levels, and that's why we suggest, and we highly suggest to people to take Cardio Miracle aside from like protein. So, not saying that it's not going to work, but as Dr. Avery explained, as it's processing in your gut, we just don't want those, protein and the nitric oxide to try to compete for those absorptions. So, or those developments and generations and sustainability. So it'll still create nitric oxide. It'll just be a little bit slower and not as powerful. So we definitely want to use it to the optimal effect. And so someone else said, please explain how emotions like stress, anger, anxiety, resentment affect the body, and how does it cause sickness and disease?
Okay, if I could jump on this one, Josh, I'd appreciate
Please.
it.
Yes.
Thanks. So think of it like this. Everyone knows about the fight or flight response, which was actually coined by Dr. Walter Cannon, who was at Harvard, both in the civilian population and then obviously in the military, and also in the human population as well as in animal studies. Then fast forward 70 years later, Herbert Benson at Harvard is a cardiologist who also looked at this response with anxiety and emotions, and he noted that he was treating patients who had high blood pressure. He put them on blood pressure meds. They would go home back in their environment where everything was good in terms of calm and they were used to a certain environment, and their blood pressure would drop too low. So he says, hey, that's weird. Why are they high in my office, but it's low when they're back home? He did some studies, NIH studies, and then some studies at Harvard in the same lab as the fight or flight or freeze guy, Walter Cannon, and found that in fact people's emotional lives, their emotions will trigger epinephrine, norepinephrine, so adrenaline to be released when they're stressed. And so that can be a good thing. A little stress is great when you're working out. A little stress is great when you're running. A little stress helps keep your muscles strong and your heart strong. But if there's chronic stress, then eventually those organs start to break down. And that's what Dr. Herbert Benson found. And he actually began to teach cardiologists about the importance of not only prescribing certain medications, but then also adding a relaxed environment, because our emotional life literally will affect our bodies and how that works. And I'm a neurosurgeon, so I love the brain and how the brain works. That's what I studied for over 20 years and then 24 years in practice after that. But basically what happens is that you look at something that you think is really wrong or a problem, and your emotions will get off, and they will continue to escalate. And when they do, the frontal lobe will tell the hypothalamus, which is a master area in your brain, something's wrong. And then the hypothalamus tells the rest of your body that, hey, something's really wrong. So now you have to secrete more cortisol or steroids. And you get stressed out, and your palms sweat, and your heart rate goes up, and all of these things that can be good for short periods, but long periods of it break down your systems. And so it also triggers inflammation, and that's where there's that interaction with the nitric oxide system. So so the nitric oxide balances out the stress from your brain, because you're stressed about something, that then actually leads to a chemical response in your blood and in your body. And it's a whole metabolic reaction. But that's, for instance, why when you're nervous, your palms start to sweat. Well, it's because your brain tells another part of your brain something's wrong and you're nervous. And that tells your sympathetic system, hey, you got to sweat because something's wrong. And that's how that works. So your thoughts are directly connected to your immune system and directly connected to all kinds of systems in your body. And that's why early on that Josh and I were talking about how inflammation that could be due to trauma, like physical trauma of your body, emotional trauma, or infections, or, and other ways that inflammation happen, all of those can cause the same issue at the root cause, which is inflammation. And your body has the same answer for all of those different ways that inflammation is generated.
Wow. Yeah, the body doesn't understand just kidding. Your body's just going to get. That's why people say, as a man thinketh, he is. So we got to be careful with that. So a great question here we got. My friend who was on the product was told by her doctor that her B12 was way too high. And then they had another question: how high can B12 be, and are there complications if it is too high?
Well, I tell you what, if you don't mind, I'm a little bit shocked by that, because as a neurosurgeon, when I think about the B vitamins, and especially B12 and even B6, what I've seen is I've never seen a problem when the vitamin B was too high. I have seen problems when it was too low, and that's when it creates issues in your spine and your nerves, with weakness, with neuropathy, we call it, which is that weird tingling or burning or buzzing or numbness in your hands and feet and your legs when people are diabetic. So, and also remember that a lot of the vitamins, your body will absorb what it needs and get rid of the rest. And so for me, I don't know what too high is relative to the person. I think the issue is going to be, though, that your body is really smart, way smarter than any doctor, way smarter than me. And I think that's the reason why I've been so happy to be a part of the Cardio Miracle team, because I can actually promote something that's within our Hippocratic Oath, which is first do no harm. The problem is, we as doctors, and since you had mentioned about a doc, we as doctors don't learn anything about nutrition in medical school. And so oftentimes we can't really address the nutritional side of things. We can address the chemical side of things, but not the nutritional side. So I'm excited because John Hewlett and the Cardio Miracle family has given me the opportunity to actually see firsthand what happens with good nutrition, and looking at large population of people. So with that being said, I've not actually seen anyone who has had a problem because there's too much B12. But what I will say, and what I really like about the Cardio Miracle, is that it's very easy on the body's systems in general. And again, as you get more nutrition, and you shift up and you shift up, sometimes your body will change until it's used to being around a lot of good nutrition. And so we see that from time to time because people sometimes have poor diet or poor sleep, not getting enough water, and now all of a sudden they're getting all this good nutrition constantly from the cardio miracle, and their body has to shift into a different mode, but it's definitely a good mode.
Yeah.
So that's what I would
That
say.
remodeling effect that I coined. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So Avery, this is a great question right here because I actually do mix my Cardio Miracle and creatine. Is that good? Is it good to mix creatine with Cardio Miracle, or should I do that separately to have more of an effect?
Yeah, so I would say you can definitely mix them for sure. I'm a more of a purist, if you will. So I would tend to, what I tend to do is if I'm going to have creatine or if I'm going to have anything that has, that's released from different types of proteins, I tend to separate those out more. But I don't see a negative effect at all with mixing those.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's awesome. And I love this question too. How often can I drink Cardio Miracle? I like the taste and could drink it all day. I drink it all day personally. I mean, I do between 4 to 6 scoops a day, that's me. I work out. I work out twice a day. I run 5 miles. I do a ruck every morning. I do 60-pound weighted vest and I jog and then I go lift weights. And so for me being that active, it's good. I think for people like me. But what do you think about the regular person, Dr. Avery?
Yeah, that's a great point, Josh. I would say, start at one serving in the morning, and then again in the evening to start, and see how you feel with it, and then so then it's yeah, because it's so you have two a day, right, and then go from there. And so the recommendation is two, but I tell people all day long that if your body is demanding more, there's no problem going up and doubling or tripling or quadrupling the amount because your body is burning through it. Your body is creating inflammation, and that nitric oxide comes in and balances it out. And again, that's the science behind it. And so it depends. Like some days I'll just do 2 scoops twice a day, and other days I'll take six servings in the day depending upon what the demand is for me. I know a lot of people who, when they do have some cold symptoms, there's lots of inflammation, or they do hurt their knee, for instance, there's some of that they will, tend to take more and they just feel better. And so again, going back to the basic premise, if your body is injured, right, it's got inflammation, it's asking for good building blocks, because once it gets building blocks, good nutrition, it will pick the building blocks and then use the building blocks in a smart way. So that's all we're saying. We're talking about superfood here, folks,
Yeah.
and we're talking about what basic science in terms of how our bodies work. And so, with all that being said, it just makes sense, right? You want to be able to get good building blocks into your body so your body can use those building blocks to then do what it needs to do to take care and fight inflammation or what have you.
I love it, and we got. I want to wrap up here. We've almost gone 43 minutes here, so we'll end at about 45. But we got Gadget Queen 324 Avery who says, "I use Cardio Miracle one a day for 2 months. I was just admitted to the ER, and my metabolism numbers were all very good. Doctor said better than his. I'm 71. I'm sure. I'm sure the good numbers were because of Cardio Miracle. So I am so grateful to you. I hope that everything's good with the ER visit and everything. Gadget Queen. I love that name. That's such a cool name.
That
And
is a good name.
but that is it. So if you could explain real quick to end us out here, Avery, what how does that, like, with all of her numbers being in the good range, almost better than her doctors, like, how would that be explained, do you think, in a easy sense?
Yeah, in the easy sense. So bottom line is that if your body is getting what it needs, then that's why you have good numbers, because your body's happy, and that's what we want. We want people to have a good life, good food, and then let the body do what it needs to do. And I'm so grateful that you're doing well, and because oftentimes when we don't get good nutrition, things can be worse when we go into the ER. So praise the Lord.
Very true. Yes, we'd like to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. No, we might be on again next. Hold on, let's see. I don't know. I can't anyway. But yeah, we're just really excited for the holiday season, and yeah, we got another one. One of these is gonna come in 2026. So we have a very special. Opportunity to share with everybody. If you'll go again to cardiomiracle.com/studies. And as well, we put up a link there for cardiomiracle.com/Dr. Avery. Go check out his landing page as well. And if you have any additional questions, please reach out to us at support@cardiomiracle.com and we'll answer any questions that you might have. But we hope everybody has a blessed Christmas and everybody, is safe for the new year, and that we all just try to get our health and wellness in so that we can be super healthy. Merry Christmas. You got any
Merry
lasting words
Christmas.
for us, Dr. Avery?
Yeah, Merry Christmas. I mean, the best gift is a gift of health. And we've basically talked about what we've done for people when we recommend the Cardio Miracle, and what Jesus Christ has done in this season is He wants us to be healthy in spirit, soul, and body. So, Merry Christmas.
Yes, sir. Praise the Lord. Yeah, we're so excited to be part of this mission to save 100 million lives, or the hearts of mankind. That's we just got a little mission. So we love you, Dr. Avery. Thanks for your time. Love all of you. Thank you for your time, and Merry Christmas, everybody.
Love you guys.